So our dreams of an unbeaten season for our win predictor model here on the Analyst Hat-Trick came to a close after just one game. Please join me in a moment of silence to reflect upon this unfortunate event. Because in reality, it was a very similar case for most of us Analyst contributors and even you in the community as well. Matt Furness did at least manage to drag his picks out into the third game, where we all got wiped out by Tottenham's victory over Manchester City. Just the third time that reigning champions have suffered defeat in the opening game of the defence in the Premier League. But please spare a thought for Kevin too. A 0-point weekend, and to make matters worse, even picking against his beloved Spurs too. Anyway, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, and I'm feeling good ahead of another weekend of Premier League action here on the Analyst Hat-Trick. I'm Graham Bell to help guide you through the games, starting off where else but at Anfield, and a team that we didn't feature in last week's show, but it didn't seem to affect Liverpool as they were able to run out very comfortable 3-0 victors over Norwich City. This weekend though, it's a fixture I can already tell is sending shivers up and down the spines of Reds fans. You see, last season when Burnley came to Anfield, Sean Dyche's men came away with a 1-0 victory and ended Liverpool's incredible home unbeaten run at 68 games. And right now in the Premier League, Liverpool have the current longest unbeaten run at 11 games and have won their last 6 as well. Anybody up for any omens? Well, seemingly not in the analyst community, because you are backing Liverpool to come out on top in this one. They have only lost their first league home game of a season 3 times in the last 55 attempts, the last of them coming all the way back in 2003 when the much-missed Gerard Houllier was at the helm and they lost 2-1 to Chelsea. Well, this man was the man to grab all the attention last weekend against Norwich City, and coming into this game, he has the chance to make a rather unique bit of history. You see, it will be his 160th appearance in the Premier League, and so far, only 4 other players have scored 100 goals in that time period. Salah himself sits on 98, so a double in this one, and he joins a rather illustrious list. Whether he finds the back of the net or not, our win probability model, perhaps unsurprisingly, is backing Liverpool to be victorious in this one, with a 66% chance of victory. The draw coming in at 21.9%, whilst Burnley, who have lost their last 4 games in a row in the competition, have been given just a 12.1% chance of winning. But it is worth noting they have never lost 5 Premier League games in a row. Right, as ever, I'm going to be joined each and every week by one of the contributors from the Analyst.com, and this week, well, where else could I turn but to the leader of the pack at the moment, Matt Furness. Here's his thoughts on the Liverpool v Burnley game.
Liverpool will be welcoming back their Anfield crowd this weekend for the first time in what feels like forever, following the COVID-19 restrictions in the UK. We all know that Liverpool are a much harder team to face at Anfield with a crowd, much more intimidating for away teams than without one. So Burnley last season, when there were no crowds, they beat Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield thanks to that Ashley Barnes penalty, but I don't see the same thing happening this time around. Virgil van Dijk returned to the side last week, and he'll be making his first appearance back at Anfield in the Premier League since injury in this one. Last season, the Reds had 16 different central defensive partnerships. With Van Dijk returning, that stability should be reinforced, and they shouldn't be having to go through so many players at centre-back this season, which should help them against a Burnley side who offer such an aerial threat. Liverpool haven't lost their opening home league game in a Premier League season since facing the newly rich Chelsea in 2003-04. They lost 2-1. I don't see them losing this one. I think it's going to be a comfortable win for Liverpool against Burnley on Saturday.
And perhaps unsurprisingly, it's a clean sweep across the board when it comes to predictions from the Analyst team as well. All of us going for a Liverpool victory in this one. If so, it will be the first time in Premier League matches that Burnley have lost more than 10 games to a single opponent. This will be their 11th defeat at the hands of Liverpool, but they have also suffered 10 at the hands of Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City. Rolling on through the rest of Saturday's action, and probably the most surest I have ever seen our win probability model, with Manchester City being given an 87.9% chance of victory over Norwich, who have one of the most unfortunate starts to the season, it has to be said. Pep Guardiola probably delighted to be returning to a 3 p.m. kickoff slot on a Saturday. On the 30 previous occasions they've played at that time, they've won 26, drawn 3 and lost just 1. Our win probability model also predicting it will be a good Saturday for fans of Leeds, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa and Brighton and Hove Albion. But it's to Sunday we turn for our next deep dive, and no doubt Nuno Espirito Santo would have been absolutely delighted having secured a victory in his first game in charge of Tottenham Hotspur, even more so against the reigning champions. But this weekend we've got to throw a whole barrel of emotion at it as well, as he'll be returning to a place where he was once loved, Molineux. Now, Wolves didn't have the happiest starts to the season, suffering defeat at the hands of Leicester City, but we do have to go a little bit back in history, all the way back to their very first season in the Premier League back in 2003, for the last time Wolverhampton Wanderers suffered defeat in their opening 2 games to a campaign. It will be the 100th meeting between the two sides in all competitions, and you believe that Nuno will enjoy a happy return to the Midlands, backing Spurs to go marching on once again. Now, of the 14 Premier League meetings between the two sides, 50% of them have been won by the away team, so you might be on the right track there. You also might not be. It really is a bit of a toss of a coin there. If there was one bright moment for Wolves last weekend, it was the return of Raul Jimenez to the pitch following that long injury layoff, and he looks set to make his first appearance at Molineux since November of 2020. He is, of course, the club's all-time leading goalscorer in the Premier League with 34 strikes, 18 of which have come on home soil, which is also a club record. The Mexican will need to find the back of the net if they are to overturn the odds in our win probability model though, Spurs being given a 44% chance of victory, but it's very close between a potential draw or a Wolves win. But what about Matt, I hear you? Here's his thoughts. How?
Nuno will return to Wolves as Spurs manager for the first time since leaving them this summer. Spurs obviously come off the back of a fantastic win against the reigning Premier League champions Manchester City on the opening match day. But will they have Harry Kane back in their ranks? He's in the squad for their Europa Conference League, if that's what it's called, competition this Thursday against Paços Ferreira. Will he be in the squad on Sunday? Who knows? Probably not. Which will suit Spurs because they have Son Heung-min up top. And without Kane in the side, Son has scored 6 goals in his last 7 Premier League appearances without the England captain alongside him. Could be more of the same this weekend. And obviously Lucas Moura, Stephen Bergwijn had great games as well last weekend. So you wouldn't want to mix up that front three. Wolves, they probably deserve something from that game against Leicester last weekend. Adama Traore in particular put in a really strong performance. I think they were unlucky, and I think that maybe they can get something from this game against Spurs. It would be very Spursy to not win this game after being the reigning champions on the opening weekend. I'm going to go for a draw at this game at Molineux.
Well, this is a real smorgasbord of predictions from the Analyst team. I'm actually going to go against Matt's thoughts here. Yes, it might be Spursy not to win this game, but this doesn't feel like Harry Kane's team anymore, so I'm backing them to come good along with Johnny. But Duncan is going for it all with a Wolves win. Worth noting though, since returning to the Premier League, they haven't won their first home league match of the season in the last 3 campaigns. Yikes. Now as the weeks roll by, you might be wondering, well, how can I make smarter picks? Or maybe how can I learn about some underlying data that might impress my mates down the pub? or like me, you just want to appear smarter. I mean, it's possible, I'm living proof of it. And rather than buying an encyclopedia that just contains the letter V, how about heading over to our season-long metrics from the Premier League, along with the top 3 other divisions in England and the big European leagues, and also soon the Women's Super League too. It's all free and available on the Analyst.com for you right now, so head on over and take a peek. For now though, it's on to our third and final game of the weekend and the latest instalment in the North v South London derby between Arsenal and Chelsea. And yeah, maybe we're a little bit glutton for punishment in picking the Gunners here once again following their opening day defeat to Brentford. But it is worth bearing this in mind. Mikel Arteta's side picked up 2 victories over the Blues last season. If they make it 3 wins in a row here, it will be the first time they have done that since between 2003 and 2004. But it is worth bearing this in mind. Arsenal have not won a game against Chelsea in the Premier League on a Sunday in their last 10 attempts. However, the Gunners themselves are unbeaten in their last 8 Sunday games. So probably something's got to give this weekend, right? Well, you in the Analyst community firmly believe that blue will be the colour this weekend, and I can see why. Chelsea have won 15 of their last 20 away matches in August, losing just 2, although this is their first away league match against Arsenal in this month since 1984, when the sides drew 1 apiece at Highbury, with Kerry Dixon cancelling out the sadly recently departed Paul Mariner's opener for the Gunners. However, our win probability model is slightly more torn. However, it is making Arsenal the slightest of slight favourites to win this one, being given a 36% chance of doing so compared to Chelsea's 34.8%, with the draw at 29.2%. If Arsenal are to do it though, they'll need to find the back of the net, something they failed to do last weekend despite having more attempts than any other top-flight side over match day 1 with 22. So what does Matt think will be the outcome in this one?
Back in October 2017, Troy Deeney came out and suggested that Arsenal lacked the cojones to put up a fight against teams. This was after Watford's 2-1 win against Arsenal at Vicarage Road. 4 years down the line, do they look any different? Probably not. They seem to be easily got at by teams. Can be quite intimidated easily. The Brentford game last Friday, losing against newly promoted opposition who offered a bit of physicality, especially the second goal from the long throw, will have Arsenal fans a little bit worried that it's going to be more of the same this season. They come up against a Chelsea team that looked really good on the opening match day against Palace, winning 3-0. Plus, this Chelsea side could be welcoming Romelu Lukaku back after a long absence. He signed from Inter, where he's had 2 fantastic seasons and improved greatly on his time from Manchester United. Looks a completely different player. Having him, a player like him, running at the Arsenal defence should frighten Arsenal fans for this weekend. Although it must be said that Arsenal did win both Premier League games against Chelsea last season, and Mikel Arteta is on a run of 3 consecutive victories against Chelsea. So for this one, I think that it's going to be a routine Chelsea win. And Arsenal do have some tough games coming up, so it's going to be tough for them to pick up any points in the next few weeks.
And that's a thought match by many of us contributors here on the Analyst. None of us going for an Arsenal win here, although Ollie, Johnny and Duncan believe they will at least get a point from this. Kevin and I are joining Matt's bandwagon and plumping for a Chelsea win. As ever here on the Analyst Hat Trick, we won't be leaving any game in the Premier League uncovered. So elsewhere on Sunday, we are seeing Manchester United coming out on top against Southampton and equaling the longest away unbeaten run in English top-flight history at 27 games. Whilst we also have the return of Monday Night Football this weekend, where our win probability model just sees Leicester defeating West Ham United, who have lost their first home league match of the season in each of their last 3 campaigns, scoring just once and conceding 9 times in the process. Anyway, that's it for the second week here on the Analyst Hat Trick. Thank you very much for taking part in all our polls, and equally as important, tuning in to watch the show as well. Don't forget, you can see more great insight each and every day over on theanalyst.com, the home of data-driven storytelling. I've been Graham Bell. Thank you very much for tuning in, and until next week, goodbye.